In this tutorial, we're going to be adding a custom skin model for Age of Wonders 3. We will be binding it to the template humanoid rig, then importing it into the content editor, and then finally into the mod editor. So to get started, we'll need a 3D package. I'll be using Maya, so you might be able to follow along with Blender or Max, as well as a 3D program for our textures, so either Photoshop or GIMP. And finally a 3D game model you want to bind. That will be in a T-pose. This is pretty advanced in terms of modding, so I won't be covering any of the basics in using Maya or Photoshop. It may require you to have some basic knowledge in it already. So firstly, if you can, or have not already, install Collada or the Nvidia tool. The links can be found via the modding guide in the Getting Started with Modding tab. And then go to the 13.4 or page 44 and you'll find details on this. It's recommended to always refer to the guide. However, I find it's a little bit easier just to find these both with just a search engine. So either just look at the links below this video or just type in Collada download tool. For the Collada, the archive ones work okay. You can go to the latest binaries. I found that using the very latest was a bit buggy, so it did not work for me. So preferably pick a slightly older version. And then just follow the instructions that's in the text guide to install the plugins. The same goes with the Nvidia tool. So once that's done, we now have everything to get on with it. I have my 3D package open, and the first thing I'm going to do is import the humanoid.dae template, which is found zipped in a link on the Getting Started with the Modding tab. Then what I'm going to do is make a quick selection set. So start the tedious task of opening up all my bones in a hierarchy. By the way, I'll be speeding up this video, so just hit pause whenever you need to. And after that's done, then make our quick selection set. So go create, set, quick selection set, and then middle mouse button, drag bones into the quick selection set from the hierarchy. Whatever you do, don't delete bones or move them around. I found this messes with your animation up, and it throws errors. You don't want to be binding the F motion or any IK or FK bones, as well as the right or left footballs. They seem to be throwing errors, so don't put them into your set. If you want cloth or wings, please just add those bones as well. Once this is done, save it as a template. It will quickly become tedious if you keep doing this every time. So I've gone a bit ahead and I've put all my bones I need into the quick selection set. This makes it really easy for binding our model. I've also put our bones and template humanoid on a separate layer by going add select to object. I can turn them off if I don't need them. Okay, so now we can import our custom model and align the model to the existing humanoid template as best we can. I'm using a Dota model, and maybe just put your new model on its own layer. Even though we have moved our model, it still recognizes 0 as its previous space, and it may have deformations that will cause errors on export. So what we will need to do is delete the history, freeze transformations, and reset the transformation. So now this is its new 0. After you've unbound and detached the skin to the existing humanoid model from the skeleton, which is in Animations tab, Skin, Detach Skin, we are right then to bind our new custom model. So just hold Shift and select all the individual bones in our set, and then select our custom model pieces we want to bind. Then go to Skin, Smooth Bind, Options box, or the little square next to it. So change bind to the selected joints, and then it will make life easier with closest in hierarchy, and hit OK. Our model is now bind, so painting weights begins. You could do this all manually and go to Skins, Paint Weights Skin tool. It goes from white to blue, and which bones is being influenced by our model. So white being the most influenced and blue being the least and black being 0. We need to do a bit of work now so it's not going to look like a Dali painting once we get it into the actual game. So here are all our bones and that we have bound. If you're seeing F motion or IK, you might have skipped a step. Try and go back and get that right and it will save you a bit of grief for the future. So here I want to make its right hand wrist fully influenced, so painting it white. Your brushes are below the bones. You can see a bit of painting has changed to be a bit more influenced. By the way, if you're seeing black, grey or whites, it's because I have the color ramp checked on in the gradients just below. So this is okay. It's not really effective and mostly for fine tuning. And we have all this influence happening down near our legs. So what we're going to do instead is right click on our model, select vertexes. We're now in vertex mode, and then we're going to select all the parts we don't want our hands to influence. Holding down shift, adding a few more, then Windows General Editor, Component Editor. If you're not already, select the Smooth Skins tab. And then we're going looking for anything that's related to the arms, selecting the first in the list and scrolling down. We want to remove all the vertex influences right to the bottom. And because we have a few in a row, we're going to kill a few birds and type 0 for no influence. Keep going with this for the others. They may come back. It's kind of a bit like a whack-a-mole. It's a bit tedious, but at least we know that we have completely removed our arms influences from our legs. Once you've done this, just hit close. If you have a few meshes making up one model and it's finding it a bit hard to paint or edit around each of them, we can right click on our model, select faces, double click, which highlights that piece, and then go show isolate selected. This makes it a bit easier for influencing individual pieces. I'm going to go back into our vertex mode and our component editor, and I'm going to add a value of 1, which is a maximum influence for our chest. You can see all those other pieces gone and they are no longer influencing now. And they are no longer influenced now. I'm going to do it for the arms with a bit more of a dodge selection and the head, which I'll skip in showing. Going to do this for a bit of a test, so we'll turn on our bones rig layer. We're still in isolated selector mode, so we need to just go back to show uncheck view isolated selected. So now we're just going to test some of the limbs. Seeing this armor still has some influence on our head, so what I'll need to do is remove that via the component editor. The spine seems to be okay, a few minor problems, but they can be ignored. See, we'll quickly fix his chest. Right click on our model, vertex, and then select the whole chest. Go back into our component editor and then set the head influence to 0, removing all our influence from our chest. And then just check for the neck too. Keep doing our limbs tests. Just Alt Z to undo our moves. As you can see, there are some issues, but that's okay. So when we're happy with the rig, let's export. So this time you don't want to select the quick select, but instead we want our model pieces and the F motion, and then go File, Export, Open Collado Export. If you don't see this and it's installed, just check in your plugin view. Pause the video and check what you see, and export your custom model to somewhere you can find it. Alright, now we're done. Now for the texturing. So I've already just opened up Photoshop and I've done any changes I wanted to make to the texture, or if I'm happy with how it is, we're ready to export either way. Go File, Save As, select .dds. If you can't see it and it may not be installed, what might help is just restarting the program. Then hit Save. You should get this Nvidia formatting page. Just pick the first for our color texture, then save. Now, if you get an error, it's because the texture is not in the right res. So I'll just go back and I'll show you. So here is our error. You can fix it by using any of the following sizes. You can also combine by 1024 by 512, or even go less, so 256 or half again if the model's small. We want to save on processing power where we can. So now it all comes together in the component editor. So open up Age of Wonders, Package Manager, launch the component editor. First we will import our texture, so go to the Textures tab, then grab our saved .dds files. I added one more for our example. Then we'll need to go to our materials tab, and there we can add our texture and any other goodies. The standard Age of Wonders unit uses a figure material, but we don't have our dependencies set, so we can't access that. What we'll need to do is open up dependencies. If you're with Steam, it's in your Steam apps folder. Just navigate your way, titles, libraries, characters, and then if you want to hunt down the skin race file that you want to use, I'll be using the L's for this demo. So now we have access to those models, textures, but more importantly the humanoid animation and the figure materials. So now go back to our materials and we can create a figure material. Now after all that, I personally won't be using it, and I find some of my custom unit shader flickers in game, so I won't be using the colorized map. I'll select my shader and then use the diffuse map or a color map. And then I'm going to change this to no name, which is the name of our content editor in this example. And it will auto assign the first texture. And then I'll do the same for the second material, but change the resource to my second texture. So our textures and materials are ready, so let's import the model. We actually are importing the mesh, but I find it better to use the Models tab for importing multiple piece units. It takes a while to load, so have a bit of patience. But if you get an error and nothing's happening, it may be due to the Collada version you used. It might be too new or a bit buggy, or you may have something like too many names. It's because you have bounded it to the bones it does not recognize, like the IK or FK, etc. But if all went well, let's proceed. Over to the mesh tab, and you can see both parts that make up the model. Now if your model is not aligned or faces the other way, what you can do here is, instead of going all the way back into our 3D package and doing it again, just go to the transform tab. Now translate and rotate are pretty self-explanatory, but scale is a bit weird, so we're going to quickly talk about that. One is your resting number, the neutral number, so making it 0 will make it extremely small. We'll quickly demonstrate this by going 0.9, so slightly smaller, and then 1.1, which will make it slightly bigger. If you click -1, it will reverse it, and just do that again and it will get up the right way. Anyway, I thought I'd show you and demonstrate that. It's a pretty handy tool. So we have our mesh in. Let's put some color on it. So back into our models tab, and then we select our pieces, and then we assign our materials, which is under current. We can assign for each piece. I've changed my mind about the texture. I'm no longer wanting the dark elf with the high elf, so I'm going to go back into my materials and I'll change it to the other texture I had open. Now the very last thing, which is important, I need to assign our animation rig, which is under library and also our resources, so select humanoid. If you don't see it here, just add the racial skin dependency. If you did get an error, it should tell you what bones that cannot be assigned. Just save as, where you keep your mod files. Now we're quickly going to demonstrate our success in the mod editor. So I'm just going to open up an existing mod. If you're not sure what you're doing here, just save and go to Garesh's mod on creating a new unit, and then come back to this and you can just change your figures. So I've selected my unit elf.rpk, and I'm going to copy an existing unit, so I'll be using the high elf swordsman. Now all I need to do is change the model link to my no name mod. But instead of using no name, I've actually copied it into an existing content editor with my other units. So I've also changed his texture a bit more again, and I gave him a name, so I've called him Paladin. So now here he is, now located in the Army New Units mod. So whatever name you had given it, and here is our demo model. Some models don't import all that great, and some might be restricted to certain animations, so you don't overly notice those errors. If you have a head floating out or arms facing weirdly, you might need to go back into painting the influences again. It's much of a trial and error, and this is just from personal experience. Absolutely experiment. So we're just having a bit of a look at the different animations, just looking for any serious anomalies. These all seem to be okay. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and it's probably one of the more complex tasks that you might do. To celebrate, we're just going to quickly add an effect to our guy. So if you're not sure what you're doing now, just jump over the Garesh's tutorial on creating a new unit. And if you want to look more into particles, jump on Bob's tutorial on particles for more details than that. Thanks for listening to me. I hope you enjoy your new model. Cheers.